Hi, my name is Tracy Chauvin. I'm going to be walking you through my e-portfolio for my non-degree endorsement in building level leadership. So let's start with a little bit about me. My name is Tracy Chauvin, and I am a school social worker for the Shawnee Mission School District. This is my 8th year in the Shawnee Mission School District. I was also a social work student when I was getting my master's in social work in Shawnee Mission, so I'm coming full circle in trying to obtain a leadership position within my school district. I have also worked in the Kansas City, Kansas public schools as a special education social worker, and then a variety of our local agencies, mental health centers, psychiatric hospitals, and homeless shelters, as well as providing family and individual counseling outside of the school district. So I've got a really good clinical knowledge base, and now I chose this program to get a leadership knowledge base. You can delve further into my personal and professional goals on my goals page, and also I have a more in-depth introductory video there. Next up is my leadership philosophy. This was one of the most enlightening and useful assignments I completed while doing this program. I was really able to find a foundation and a platform for which I stood and really analyze my strengths and weaknesses and find my areas that I really wanted to focus on and then convey them in a concise one-page leadership philosophy platform. You can go and get that in detail on my leadership philosophy page. On my program of study page, you will find all the classes that I took for my non-degree endorsement. I actually started this program in December and took an interterm class and then finished it, actually all of my classes, 2 weeks ago in June. So I was able to complete it in roughly 6-7 months. And so you can find all the classes that I took and when I took them on my program of study page. I briefly mentioned during my introductory and my goals page my background. I have my resume on here for one page. It is a education-focused resume specifically. So for example, if I was applying for a job at the local mental health center or a psychiatric hospital, I would use one that is more clinically focused, that talks about my therapy a little bit, my therapy experience a little bit more, and my clinical license a little bit more in depth. But for the purposes of this e-portfolio, I have really focused on my leadership and education skills, how I support teachers, how I support programming and instruction for our teachers, and one of the things that I really want to highlight when I am seeking jobs is the trainings facilitated, as I have a passion for doing adult professional development and training. For example, I presented with my instructional coach on engaging all learners through a trauma-informed lens at the KU School of Education Summer Conference, and I'm extremely passionate about talking with teachers, talking with people in the education field about trauma-responsive practices and what we can do to put a foundation in the classroom that supports every single student. So I really want to highlight and focus that when I speak on my resume or when I speak with other leaders. I have also put on there some awards and grants that I've gotten. Again, they all go through that equity lens of trying to make sure that everybody has what they need in our classrooms. These are all Shawnee Mission Education Foundation grants, focusing a lot on our diverse student population. You can find my resume on my resume page that details all of my strengths. Next up are my activities, my annotated bibliography. I really focus this on leadership, on my leadership style, how I envision a community being. I already know I have a platform in trauma-responsive teaching, so I wanted to use this annotated bibliography to really show that I've delved deep into that self-reflection piece of finding my strengths as a leader and the research to back that. So my annotated bibliography really focuses on changing mindsets, empowering our communities, and making our schools a community versus we have a school within a community, really making them the center of communities. Next up are my practicum hours. I did roughly 250 practicum hours over the course of December until June. And I really wanted to focus my attention on my leadership platform and my professional goals of whole child wellness, really focusing on our students in terms of their physical, emotional, and social well-being, and then really communicating with families that they're an important stakeholder, they're an important part of our communities. So most of my activities really focused on that, as that is what I would like to do in the future. So to highlight a few of those activities, one of the ones that I was really excited to do was be a part of the strategic planning process. We have a new superintendent in Shawnee Mission this year, and he is undergoing the strategic planning process and has initiated that. And so I am a part of that at the building and district level. So I was able to attend the kickoff events and a variety of meetings. So seeing and hearing the vision for each specific building and how our district vision is driving that was really eye-opening. I also wanted to focus a little bit on this diversity, equity, and inclusion leadership team. This is a district-wide initiative. I have been a part of it at the grassroots effort, just meeting with parents about 4 years ago, which really evolved into this year advocating for a diversity, equity, and inclusion officer or coordinator, which we were able to successfully do, so we will have one for next year. But this specific leadership team this year really focused on narrowing down our mission statement so that when we did hire somebody as a leadership team, we would have a platform for them to go forth to have activities and programming for our district. So that was something that I have spent a lot of time and passion doing this year. And then another interesting thing that I was able to be a part of at the district level was a Kansas, Missouri social emotional learning meetup. I went with the Director of Family Services and the Director of Curriculum Instruction for Shawnee Mission and heard what other school districts around us are doing and how they're embedding social emotional wellness within every community, every classroom, and in all standards, regardless of content area. And so hearing that and helping really narrow down a program that we would like to use was a focus of this. Another thing that I had the opportunity to do was a Kronos training. Kronos is the classified staff time in, time out procedure, and I was able to meet with someone who runs that and do the front end part and pretend to be a classified employee and look and see what it looks like on that end, and then the back end as well, get trained on what it looks like if you have to go in and approve, make changes, and to this district system. So that was a really interesting opportunity. One that I found extremely interesting, because I hope to be doing this one day, is the social work staffing for our entire district. I met with the Director of Family Services multiple times. We had to take into account the needs of every building, the wants of every building, the staffing of every building, the student demographic of every building, and a variety of other factors to determine how best to utilize our social workers. We do not have one in every single building, and so I personally have 2 buildings that I support. How do we allocate that? How do we really make this equitable? And so that was something that was a huge focus in this. And then another program that I worked with the Director of Family Services, one of the lead nurses, one of the district behavior specialists, and our student success liaison was our district-wide student wellness fair. We spent hours coordinating this, working with our community members to make sure that we were providing what our community needed and asked for, making sure that our parents, that our teachers and staff have the tools that they need to meet the needs of all learners and all families in our district. At the secondary level, I completed a variety of activities, and the one that was the most impactful for me was actually supervising a basketball game. And I wrote a little bit about this in my program reflection, but supervising a basketball game with that building principal was completely different than what I thought it would be. It was more about connecting versus correcting. So it was connecting with the community members that were there, connecting with the families that were there, connecting with the students that were both participants on the basketball team and in the bleachers. It was all a way to build buy-in within that community and really increase the image of that building and that community to make sure that we were seen in a positive light. And so it wasn't so much the supervision ensuring the safety as the connecting piece. And so that is the one that was the most meaningful for me at the secondary level. At the elementary level, which was my focus as I currently support 2 elementary buildings, I had a variety of opportunities. And the one that sticks out the most is putting together our training series that related to our building leadership team goal and vision of building a resilient community. So putting together a training series for staff in our building on building resilient community, using trauma responsive practices, having speakers come in, having tools, interventions, tricks, and tips being presented that teachers could implement that day that all related back to our vision and our goals, which then related back to that strategic plan goal. It was really, really eye-opening to see that. One of the things that I also tried to make a point to do as a social worker, I want to be seen as a leader. In the education setting, that also means being an instructional leader. So I tried to make a point of attending with my instructional coach, my special ed teacher, any trainings that were available to me, such as the structured literacy training, because I understand that specifically standards like ELA standards, math standards, are seen as an area of weakness for me. So I want to make sure that anyone that I am working with knows that I have a good foundation in place and I know that I can support you or find someone that can give you more details and support, because a good leader has a team around them. Another thing that was really, really interesting to see, especially at this level, all leaders in our district do observations, do evaluations on certified staff. I got to participate in that evaluation process. So I was able to do a draft observation while my principal did her observation, and then I sent mine to her for feedback. She ended up using most of it. She really liked the way I formatted it. She really liked the way that I worded things and how I was able to give not only criticisms, but in a way that was constructive, that said, here, where do we go from here? How do we make this the best that it could be? And then I also really focused on the strengths of what I saw. The teacher that I observed built great relationships. So how can we then use that in other ways? I was also able to do instructional rounds, which in our district is all an iPad app. That was different than an evaluation observation, and this is all forced choice with very little open-ended questions. So I found that to be more difficult as it didn't always apply. I really like open-ended questions. I like the ability to say, here are the strengths that I see versus checking a box. I like to make it more personalized. But doing instructional rounds throughout our building was eye-opening, as I've never participated in an instructional round. I co-teach in classrooms, so it's that classroom teacher that is the focus when instructional rounds come through. I also was able to do some activities related to safety, security, and organizational systems, such as acting as the administrator during our student iPad check-in. We utilize technology to do that, and so I worked with our technology committee to make sure that all student iPads were checked in, and I was considered the administrator on site for that within that building. I also was able to do the same for a code red drill. I filled out all the paperwork, I ran the drill, I sent emails with feedback to the teachers on what we could change, what we could do better, what were the strengths, and then did the debriefing with our staff as well. I participated in those as the social worker, as the support person, meaning that I go and check the doors and all that, but I've never run one from start to finish with all the back-end paperwork and feedback as well. This one was my ethics and integrity special education evaluation. Again, I got to act as our LEA, the admin on site for many of the meetings. This was a student that came to us that had such an intense level of aggression that he needed specialized instruction in a building outside of ours. And so that one was, you can read more details on the slide itself, but that one was a really, really good way to see how to best meet the needs of all within the community. My program reflection gives you details about my thoughts, feelings, and my reactions to this program as a whole. I did focus more on my specific areas of learning that I wanted to do in terms of the classes and then the practicum experience itself. Feel free to click on the reflection tab to get more information there. And then I also have my activity form, which is completely filled out, and I have my administrative verification for each level located there. And thank you for walking through my e-portfolio with me. I really hope that you enjoyed this, because I enjoyed the program itself and creating this portfolio, and thank you.